Hi guys and welcome back. So I have finally read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and I want to talk about it. So I have recently just gotten back into the Hunger Games series with the new book Sunrise on the Reaping, which tells the amazing backstory of Hamish Abernathy, and I absolutely love that book. And then a few of you guys mentioned in the comments that I should give The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes a chance after all. I was originally not very interested in reading that book, but after reading Sunrise and very much enjoying the original trilogy many years back when I first read them, I thought, well, I can't leave this last book unread. So I have finally done it. I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and these are my thoughts on it. But before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and share your thoughts in the comments below as always. Let's get into it. Okay, so what is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes about? Just to introduce the plot quickly. The ballad tells the backstory of Coriolanus Snow. I'm sure I'm gonna butcher his name a few times in this video because I just can't get used to that name or pronouncing it. But again, it tells the backstory of President Snow, who of course we get to know in the original trilogy as this horrible person that is the headmaster of the Hunger Games, the puppet master of the Hunger Games, and the adversary of Katniss for the original trilogy. Now, the book takes place on the 10th anniversary of the Hunger Games, so 10 years after the capital won the war against the district. Which means it's set, like, I believe 64 years before the original trilogy, and it's set 40 years before Sunrise on the Reaping, which tells the backstory of Hamish Abernathy. So at the time of the 10th Hunger Games, the Hunger Games are not very popular. It's a very small yearly event. The capital, they want to keep pushing the event. They realize that if people are not watching the event, if there's no hype around the event, then the event is going to die, and they feel then that they might be losing control again over the districts. So what they are planning to introduce in the 10th Hunger Games is that they have like elite students of the academy, which Coriolanus is part of. They have them start mentoring these tributes. So this is the first year where tributes get a mentor. It's in this instance not a winner of a previous Hunger Games, but it's one of the students of the school. And these students, they are very competitive. They want to teach, they want to mentor their tributes to the best of their abilities because they can win a high prize at the end. And for Coriolanus, this is especially important because he comes from a wealthy, high-level family, but they still have the prestige of their name. They still have the name Snow. They still have their prestigious apartment, which is very run down by now, but they have lost most of their money during the war. So they are just now trying to maintain the perception of being a wealthy family, which is more and more difficult. So for Coriolanus Snow, it's very important to win, to make sure that his tribute is, providing the best entertainment, I guess, so that he can win the big prize, and then he gets to go on to study at the university and is able to pay his tuition, basically. So Coriolanus Snow, he gets matched with the girl from District 12, who is Lucy Gray. Lucy Gray is a member of the Covey, who are kind of a community, kind of a tribe that used to travel around the districts before the war. But since the war, they had to kind of stay in District 12 because there was no moving around anymore. These people, they try to make a living by singing at events and kind of providing paid entertainment for people that can afford it in District 12, which often are also the peacemakers itself. So originally, Coriolanus is very disappointed that he gets the girl from District 12 because he feels that there's no chance in winning with somebody as weak as Lucy Gray from District 12. But he then quickly realizes that there's actually quite a special girl behind there, and that he may be able to market her in a way that makes him get the big prize. And that's basically the main plot of the story. I'm not going to spoil any more of the story, and I want to get into now my thoughts of the book and how I felt about the book, what I liked, what I disliked. So let's talk about that. Okay, so firstly, some general thoughts on the book. Um, I was very much worried that I would not enjoy this story because, of course, as everybody, I absolutely hated President Snow in the original series, and I was like, well, how can we tell his backstory and then somehow relate to this character? Because if you can't relate to this character at all, then I think it's very difficult to find the story interesting, and to just continue on reading a story about somebody that you hate is not that easy, I would say. And I was hoping that they probably would focus more on Lucy Gray and also tell part of the story from her point of view, but that doesn't happen. So basically everything is told from Coriolanus' point of view, which I find especially boring during when the Hunger Games actually happens, during that mid part, because everything is like told from the outside, which doesn't really work well with something as which has a lot of action, like the Hunger Games. It works a lot better in the movie because they can actually show what happens to Lucy Gray. But for the book, I really feel that she, Collins, the author, is kind of missing out here. She could have had like the mid part of the book being told from Lucy Gray's point of view, or jumping back and forth between the two characters. But that was like the main problem. I don't find the character likable, not even a little bit. And even learning his backstory, I think it's still very hard for me to relate to him, because he's just a very cool person. And from the very beginning, he absolutely supports the Hunger Game and whatever the capital is doing, because he feels like, well, we won the war, they attacked us, so naturally it is only just that they should now have these Hunger Games each year. So I felt him unrelatable, which was, I guess, one of the main problems which I had with the book, and which is why I did not particularly like this Hunger Games story. So that was one of the main issues. The other one is this thing with these three parts. So there's like a part of the first third of the book is telling his background story, how he survived the war, how his family, how his upbringing is, how his struggles in school is, and what kind of motivates him. And then up to the games basically. And then we have the mid part, which are the games, which is rather a short part. And then we have the third part, where is the aftermath of the games basically, and how the relationship develops between him and Lucy Gray. And number one, I found it very slow paced. I found the whole book far too long. It could have been cut down by a lot, but I guess that's, as a prominent author as Collins is by now, she has the leverage to keep everything in there that she wants, and the editors don't really get to scrap anything. But I found it way too long, and it felt like after the climax of the second part of the book, it felt very difficult to reading on about the story, because I felt like, well, the story is basically told. It's done. It's finished. So the full third part of the book, in my mind, should have been a separate book, basically, almost, because it feels very much like stitched together, and I did not enjoy that very much. Another thing is, again, this is it's nice in the movie, but in the book, like all these songs, I really had a hard time reading all these songs. There's way too many in there, and I think I complained about the same thing, like with the poems in Sunrise on the Reaping. So I don't really need all these things in there. I think for me it was the same thing a little bit with all the Lord of the Rings books. For me, there was way too many like songs and poetry and all of that in there. But I can understand that I'm probably in the minority with this opinion, which is fine. But I would have been fine with just like 2-3 songs in there. That would have been enough for me. Talking about singing, like coming back to the Covey, um, I do kind of wonder, maybe I also missed it, but I do kind of wonder like why they were never mentioned as a group in the original trilogy. It feels like they should still be there, or did they just all lie out and then Susan Collins just implemented them when, writing these prequels? So for me, they don't connect to the original trilogy, which is kind of a problem in my opinion. Now let's talk about the characters a little bit. So Snow first, Coriolanus Snow. Um, I did not like him. I did not like reading about him, and I always had like this horrible person that he would turn into in my mind. And I could clearly see that he is already halfway there. He's an absolute pure narcissist. Everything is about him. It's about control, power, and it's about the kind of entitlement that he has, that growing up in the capital and having the name Snow associated with him should just, mean that everything should just be handed to him in life, Snow lands on top. But I do absolutely love that saying, Snow lands on top. I think that's great. I do wonder if Collins thought of that already when writing the original trilogy. I don't think that sentence is mentioned in there, but please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. Yeah, but again, I did not think he was relatable, and I did not enjoy him at all. Then Lucy Gray's character, I thought, like, even though the book was that long, I thought there should have been more character development there. And because we don't get to see any chapters told from her point of view, we really don't get to learn a lot about her thoughts, her motivation, and about her feeling. I really think that there would have been a lot of value in a few chapters from her point of view. Another thing, I complained about that already in my Sunrise on the Reaping review. I'm really not into these double names with the Covey. It's never clearly explained why they like colors and why they all need to have a color as their second first name. It's never really explained, or even if it's explained, it's not clearly reasoned why every time you mention their name, you need to mention the full, like, first two names. And it just feels very weird to me, especially when they have like a more emotional argument that you would call somebody Lucy Gray instead of just Lucy. It baffles me. I don't understand it, and I do wonder where she was coming from writing about this. Now, talking about the plot and world building a little bit, what I did enjoy very much is seeing how, like, these Hunger Games came to be, and learning a little bit more about the war between the capital and the districts. And I actually think that would be a very interesting prequel to have for the future, to have like the story being told of the war between the district and the capital, and how it came to that. So I found it very interesting to learn more about how this all came to be, the backstory of that, also how like the Hunger Games developed. It's great to know that things were not always the same thing. They had to kind of find their way with how they market this event, how they make it more interesting for the capital citizens, with introducing betting systems, and with the sponsorship, mentorship, and all these kind of things. And to the point where they only at the end of the book basically realize, well, if people in the districts don't have a television to watch the games, then it's not really worth investing that much into the games, because how do you control them if you can't show them what you're doing? So there's a lot of these things that I feel are very well connected to the overall world that Susan Collins has built here. And yeah, I think that's a nice background. I think that's the part of the book that I enjoy most, is learning more about this world, as opposed to the plot and the background of Coriolanus Snow, which I did not enjoy very much. One thing that I do want to mention, like, it seems like the Hunger Games got more horrible as time progressed, with the exception of one thing, which is that in the beginning it seems to be more about hunger, because I always kind of wonder, well, like, where is that name coming from? Why Hunger Games? Yeah, I know they didn't have much food, but in the original trilogy, it seems that the tributes are at least being fed well before entering into the arena. And here it's the exact opposite, basically. So they are dropped into an actual zoo cage, which I find absolutely horrible. And that was like one of the craziest things in this book, that they are actually being dropped into a zoo. They're not being fed at all, so they're absolutely at the mercy of, getting some support and help from their mentors, because otherwise, like, most of them would be dead before they even enter the arena. And that's another part here. Like, some people, they died before getting into the arena, whereas in the newer Hunger Games, they would make sure that tributes arrive well, good health, and well trained into the arena, so that they can actually get a great show out of them. So that's very different to how, the Hunger Games used to be, to what they developed into later on. With the arena that they used, I found that very unbelievable while reading it, because it's like a small sports stadium, basically. And I do like, yes, they have this like underground facilities and beyond the bleachers and stuff like this, but being that small, I would have assumed, to have the games be finished within like 4 or 5 hours max. So I think the arena should have been bigger for me to believe the story more. And what I also found, like, kind of hilarious, is that they all kind of went home overnight, like the mentors, and they just kind of paused the broadcasting and the whole show overnight. And I found it unbelievable that there were so few kills would happen during night. I think it was like only one that happened during nighttime that they discovered next morning, which was actually when Coriolanus was sent into the arena. So not very believable there. I'm sorry. And I think with size, I already had like this question before, when thinking about the original Hunger Games trilogy. For me, the whole like sizing of this world doesn't make much sense. Like, let's take District 12 for example. So it feels like from everybody's home to the town center, it's just a walk of like 10 minutes to 30 minutes. But then these districts are supposed to be huge, and 2,000 miles away from the capital, so each district should be huge and should have a huge population. And I think both in the movies and in the books, the scale that would be necessary to actually keep up that kind of production and to kind of feed the whole universe with coal production, and also for all the other districts, the scale would need to be times 100, basically, to what we are both shown in the books and in the movies. Everything is way too small. But yeah, these are like my main issues with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I am glad that I finally read this final book in my case of the Hunger Games series. I would be interested to reading about new stories in this world. So we'll see what she comes up with. But compared to Sunrise on the Reaping, this was so much less interesting for me to read, and the story did not catch me at all. So if you go into a rating here, I rated the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes with 2 out of 5 stars, which is much lower than I rated Sunrise on the Reaping. But yeah, I'm sorry. Please let me know, what did you guys think of the book? Did you like it? Am I missing something that I should take into more consideration? Please drop a comment below and let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you guys. Bye bye.